How many more Mondays are you going to waste waiting for the right moment to finally start your damn life? Be honest. How many times have you told yourself, I'll start when I'm ready, when I have more money, when I feel more confident, when things calm down, when the timing is perfect? Let me say this clearly so it hits you in the chest. There is no perfect time. It's a delusion, a comforting lie, a soft pillow your fear hides behind. You wake up. First thing you do, grab your phone. Scroll. Notifications, messages, news, random videos. You tell yourself it's just 5 minutes. It's never 5 minutes. An hour disappears, then another. Then the day starts to feel off. You feel slightly behind, slightly tired, slightly unmotivated. So you tell yourself, screw it, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes another damn year. And the scariest part? You don't even notice it happening. You're not lazy. That's the crazy thing. You have dreams. You think about them at night. You imagine the body, the business, the freedom, the respect. You see it clearly in your head. But you're addicted to comfort. Comfort is quiet. It doesn't scream at you. It whispers. It says, relax, you deserve a break. Just one more episode. Just one more scroll. Just one more day. And you listen, because starting is uncomfortable. Starting means you might fail. Starting means people might judge you. Starting means you might look stupid. Starting means you might find out you're not as good as you thought. So instead, you wait. You wait for motivation. You wait for inspiration. You wait for the perfect alignment of the universe. Wake the hell up. Nobody is coming. No mentor is going to knock on your door. No magical wave of confidence is going to crash over you. No perfect window is going to open where suddenly everything feels easy. You think successful people waited until they felt ready? They started scared. They started broke. They started confused. They started with doubt screaming in their heads. But they started. You're stuck because you believe action requires certainty. It doesn't. Action creates certainty. Read that again in your head. You don't become confident and then act. You act, and that's how confidence is built. You don't find the perfect time and then begin. You begin, and that's how timing becomes perfect. Right now, somewhere deep inside you, there's tension. That uncomfortable feeling when you realize you've been playing small, when you realize you've been negotiating with your potential. You say you want more, but your habits say you're fine with less. You say you're serious, but your schedule says you're just interested. You say you're going to change, but your actions are identical to last year. That gap between what you say and what you do, that's where your frustration lives. And it grows. You feel it when you see someone your age winning. You feel it when you scroll past people building, creating, evolving. You feel it when you look in the mirror a little too long. That quiet voice says, you could be further. And it's right. But instead of using that pain, you numb it. More scrolling, more distractions, more comfort. You tell yourself, it's not my time yet. That's the lie. It's not that it's not your time, it's that you're afraid to claim it. Because once you start, there's no excuse left. Once you start, you can't blame timing anymore. You can't blame your job. You can't blame your past. You can't blame your parents. You can't blame the economy. Once you start, it's on you. And that responsibility, it's heavy. But you know what's heavier? Regret. Regret is waking up at 40, 50, 60, realizing you kept waiting for conditions to be perfect while your life quietly slipped through your fingers. Regret is knowing you had potential and did nothing with it. Regret is watching someone else live the life you were too scared to pursue. So let me ask you something brutal.
If nothing changes in the next 5 years, if you keep moving at the same pace, with the same excuses, the same habits, are you proud of where you'll end up? Or does that thought scare you? Good. It should. Because fear isn't your enemy. Comfort is. The perfect time is a fantasy created by people who don't want to take responsibility. You don't need the perfect time. You need to move. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Start tired, start unsure, start embarrassed, start broke, but start. Because the moment you take action, real action, something shifts inside you. And once that shift happens, you'll realize something powerful. You were never waiting for the right time. You were waiting for permission. And you don't need it.
You know what's crazy? You're not exhausted because life is hard. You're exhausted because you keep arguing with yourself. Every morning is a silent war. The alarm goes off, you open your eyes, for 5 seconds you're clear. You know what you should do. Get up, move, work on the thing, build, train, create. And then the negotiation starts. 5 more minutes. I'll do it later. I didn't sleep enough. Today's not ideal. That conversation right there, that's where your future gets decided. Not in some big dramatic moment, not in some epic breakthrough, in that quiet, weak negotiation. You don't need more information. You don't need another podcast. You don't need another motivational video. You need to stop negotiating with the weaker version of yourself. Because every time you lose that morning battle, you reinforce a pattern. You teach your brain that comfort wins. And once comfort wins enough times, it becomes your identity. I'm just not disciplined. I'm not that kind of person. I've always been like this. No, you weren't born like this. You trained yourself like this. You trained yourself to hesitate. You trained yourself to delay. You trained yourself to wait for perfect conditions. And the worst part? It feels normal now. Scrolling feels normal. Procrastinating feels normal. Wasting hours feels normal. But you know what doesn't feel normal anymore? Progress. Deep work feels uncomfortable. Discipline feels extreme. Consistency feels unnatural. That's backwards. You've normalized distraction and labeled focus as hard. But here's the brutal truth. Your life is being shaped by what you repeatedly tolerate. You tolerate mediocrity. You tolerate excuses. You tolerate your own broken promises. Every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, and you don't, you chip away at your self-respect. And self-respect is everything. When you don't trust yourself to follow through, your confidence dies. Not because you failed, because you didn't even try. That's the silent killer. Failure builds you. Avoidance destroys you. You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid to find out what you're actually capable of. Because if you really tried, if you actually gave it everything and you succeeded, your whole identity would have to change. You couldn't play small anymore. You couldn't hide behind potential. You couldn't say, I could have done it if I wanted to. You'd have to become someone new. And growth is uncomfortable as hell. It demands sacrifice, less sleep sometimes, less entertainment, less approval from people who don't understand your vision. You might outgrow friends. You might feel lonely. You might doubt yourself harder than ever. But that discomfort, that's the price of transformation. Right now, you're stuck in a loop. You want change, you feel inspired, you promise yourself you'll start, you delay, you feel guilty, you distract yourself, you repeat. It's predictable. And the only way out isn't motivation, it's decision. A cold, clean, non-negotiable decision. Not, I'll try, not, I'll see how it goes, not, I hope this works. A decision that says, this is who I am now. That shift is internal. Nobody sees it at first. Externally, you still look the same. Same room, same job, same environment. But internally, something hardens. You stop asking how you feel. You start asking what needs to be done. That's maturity. Children move based on emotion. Adults move based on commitment. And let's be real, Most people never grow up. They just get older. They're still chasing comfort, still running from discomfort, still blaming timing. You don't need a new year. You don't need a new month. You don't need a Monday. You need a line in the sand, a moment where you say, enough. Enough scrolling, enough fantasizing, enough waiting. Because every day you delay, you strengthen the weaker version of yourself. And here's something most people don't want to hear. If you keep choosing comfort, life will eventually force discomfort on you. Financial pressure, health problems, regret, lost opportunities. Pain is coming either way. The only question is, do you choose the pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later? One builds you, the other breaks you slowly. There is no perfect time coming to save you. There is only this moment, this ordinary, boring, imperfect moment, and what you do with it. You don't need a sign, you don't need approval, you don't need clarity on every step. You need movement, because action creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates identity. And identity, that's what changes your life. Right now, you're standing at a quiet crossroads. One path is familiar, easy, comfortable, predictable. The other is uncertain, demanding, uncomfortable. But only one of them leads to growth. And deep down, you already know which one that is.
Let's get even more honest. You're not confused about what to do. You're avoiding what you already know you should do. That's the truth. You know you should wake up earlier. You know you should train your body. You know you should work on that skill. You know you should stop wasting 3 damn hours a night on your phone. You know. But knowing doesn't change anything. Execution does. And execution feels heavy when your identity is still tied to comfort. Here's what nobody tells you. The hardest part isn't the work. It's detaching from the version of you that loves excuses. That version of you is familiar, safe, predictable. He says things like, I'll start when I have more energy. I just need the right mindset. Once things settle down, I'll go all in. Listen carefully. Things will never settle down. There will always be something. Bills, stress, family, distractions, self-doubt. Life doesn't clear the path for you. You carve it out. And carving hurts. You have to cut through laziness, cut through fear, cut through habits you've repeated for years. That's not comfortable. That's violent, mentally. Because you're breaking patterns. And patterns fight back. The moment you decide to change, your brain panics. Wait, this isn't safe. Let's go back to normal. Let's just scroll for a bit. Your brain isn't designed for greatness. It's designed for survival. And survival loves comfort. But you weren't built just to survive. You feel that restlessness for a reason. That dissatisfaction, it's not random. It's the part of you that knows you're capable of more. But instead of answering that call, you drown it in noise. Music, videos, endless content, mindless conversations. You stay stimulated so you don't have to sit in silence with your own potential. Because silence forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that hurts. It's easier to stay busy than to stay honest. But here's the turning point. The day you stop asking, how do I feel, and start asking, what does my future require? Everything shifts. Your future doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're insecure. It doesn't care if you're scared. It demands action. Right now, your daily actions are voting for the person you're becoming. Every scroll is a vote. Every skipped workout is a vote. Every delayed project is a vote. You're casting ballots for your future self. And if you're brutally honest, what kind of person are you voting for? Someone disciplined or someone distracted? Someone focused or someone always about to start? That's what this is really about. Identity.
You keep waiting for the perfect time because deep down, you don't fully believe you're the kind of person who follows through. So you stall. Because as long as you haven't truly started, your dream is still intact. It hasn't been tested. It hasn't been exposed to reality. It's still pure in your imagination. But imagination doesn't build strength. Reality does. Reality humbles you. Reality shows you where you're weak. Reality forces you to adapt. And that's how you grow. Not by thinking, not by planning endlessly, not by consuming motivation like candy. By doing. Messy, imperfect, uncertain doing. You will feel stupid at first. You will feel behind. You will compare yourself to people who started years ago. Good. That discomfort means you're finally in the arena. And here's something powerful. Once you step into that arena, something inside you wakes up. A different version of you. Less fragile, less dramatic, less emotional. More focused, more grounded, more dangerous. Because now you're not waiting anymore. You're building. The perfect time myth dies the moment you take responsibility for your own momentum. You stop blaming the clock. You stop blaming the calendar. You stop blaming circumstances. And you start blaming and trusting yourself. That's terrifying, but it's also freeing. Because if it's on you, it's in your control. And control is power. Right now, you're closer to transformation than you think. Not because your situation changed, but because your tolerance for your own excuses is getting weaker. That irritation you feel with yourself, that's growth knocking. The real question is, are you finally ready to answer it? Or are you going to wait one more day?
Let me hit you with something uncomfortable. You don't actually hate your situation enough. That's why you haven't changed. You complain. You vent. You say you're frustrated. But if it truly burned, if it truly disgusted you, you would have moved already. Pain is a powerful trigger. When something hurts bad enough, you act. Touch a hot stove, you don't schedule a meeting about it, you move. So why are you still sitting in a life that drains you? Because it's not unbearable. It's just tolerable. And tolerable is dangerous. Tolerable keeps you stuck in average jobs. Tolerable keeps you in weak routines. Tolerable keeps you half-committed. You wake up slightly dissatisfied, you go to bed slightly disappointed, but not enough to explode. So you wait. You wait for a crisis. You wait for heartbreak. You wait for financial pressure. You wait for some dramatic wake-up call to force you into action. Why? Why are you waiting for pain to push you when you could choose discipline to pull you? That's the difference between reactive people and powerful people. Reactive people change when life punches them. Powerful people change before they're forced to. Right now, you still believe you have time. That's the silent assumption behind your procrastination. I'm still young. I'll figure it out. There's no rush. But time isn't loud. It doesn't scream as it leaves. It just goes. Day after day, scroll after scroll, excuse after excuse. And then one day you look back and realize you've been about to start for 5 damn years. That's the nightmare. Not failure. Wasting. You can recover from failure. You can't recover lost time. Every day you delay becoming mentally stronger, someone else is building discipline. Every hour you waste doubting yourself, someone else is sharpening their edge. You think you're in competition with them. No, you're in competition with the clock, and the clock doesn't care about your feelings. Here's where it gets deeper. The reason you're stuck isn't lack of ability, it's lack of standards. You've accepted a version of yourself that's below your potential. You've made peace with good enough. You say you want excellence,
but you live in compromise. You say you want respect, but you don't respect your own commitments. That internal contradiction creates anxiety, because deep down you know you're capable of more, but your daily behavior doesn't match that belief. And that disconnect, it eats at you. You feel it when you're alone. You feel it when the distractions stop. That quiet disappointment. That's not weakness, that's awareness. And awareness is dangerous, in a good way, because once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend you don't know you're wasting time. You can't pretend you don't know what you need to do. The illusion of the perfect time starts to crack. You realize something brutal. You weren't waiting for the right moment. You were protecting your ego. As long as you don't fully commit, you could always say, "I never really tried." That protects you from the possibility of failure, but it also guarantees mediocrity. You can't have safety and greatness at the same time. Pick one. Safety feels calm in the short term. Greatness feels terrifying in the short term. But over years, safety becomes regret. Greatness becomes pride. You have to decide which long-term emotion you want to live with. Right now, your comfort zone feels stable, but it's shrinking you. You're becoming smaller inside it, less ambitious, less bold, less willing to take risks. And the longer you stay there, the harder it is to leave. Because comfort builds invisible chains. They don't hurt, they just limit you. And you don't even notice until you try to break free. That's when fear spikes. That's when doubt screams. That's when your brain says, "This is too much." But that's also the exact point where growth begins. Growth doesn't feel safe. It feels unstable, like you're stepping on a surface that might crack. But that instability is proof you're finally moving. You want the perfect time? Here it is. Not because everything is aligned, not because you feel confident, not because you're ready, but because you're done lying to yourself. And once that line is crossed, there's no going back.
Let's strip this down to the core. The reason you keep waiting for the perfect time is because starting forces you to face reality. And reality is unforgiving. When you finally start that business, you might suck at first. When you finally hit the gym consistently, you'll see how weak you actually are. When you finally commit to discipline, you'll realize how chaotic your mind has been. That's humbling. And your ego hates being humbled. It would rather dream big than execute small. Because dreaming costs nothing. Execution costs pride. Execution exposes your gaps. Execution highlights your laziness. Execution forces you to confront your limits. But here's the twist. Limits are only visible once you test them. Right now, you don't know how far you can go because you've never truly pushed. You've flirted with effort. You've played with discipline. You've tried for a week or two. But you haven't gone all in. You haven't reached that level where your old self can't survive. That's where transformation lives. Not in half commitment, in burning the escape route. Imagine this. What if you removed the option to quit? What if maybe later wasn't allowed in your vocabulary? What if starting wasn't a mood, it was a rule? Your life would change faster than you think. Because most of your stagnation isn't from lack of opportunity, it's from too many exits. Every time it gets uncomfortable, you leave. Every time it gets hard, you retreat. Every time it demands consistency, you negotiate. And that negotiation is killing your edge. You want mental strength? Stop giving yourself an out. Mental strength isn't built in comfort, it's built in repetition under resistance. Waking up when you don't feel like it, working when you'd rather scroll, saying no when it's easier to say yes, continuing when progress feels invisible.
That's where identity shifts. Right now, you still see discipline as punishment. That's the problem. You think discipline is restrictive. It's not. It's liberating. Because discipline removes chaos. It removes the daily debate. It removes the emotional roller coaster of, I feel motivated today, and I don't feel like it tomorrow. When you operate on standards instead of feelings, life gets simpler. Harder, but simpler. You stop asking if you should train. You just train. You stop asking if you should work. You just work. You stop asking if it's the right time. You just move. And here's what happens when you live like that for months. Confidence stops being fragile. It becomes earned. Not fake hype, not temporary inspiration. Earned belief. The kind that comes from looking at your own history and saying, I do what I say. That's power. Because when you trust yourself, you stop seeking validation. You stop overthinking every step. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You become dangerous, in the best way. Focused, calm, unshakable. The perfect time myth survives only in people who haven't experienced the strength of decisive action. Once you taste that strength, you'll never want to go back. You'll look at your old self, the one who kept delaying, and feel almost embarrassed. Not because he was weak, but because he didn't realize how capable he actually was. And that's what this is about. You don't lack time. You lack urgency. You don't lack resources. You lack commitment. You don't lack potential. You lack standards. And once you raise your standards, your behavior has to rise with it. Or you'll feel the discomfort of being out of alignment. That discomfort becomes fuel. It pushes you forward. Because now, average feels unacceptable. Now, wasted days feel painful. Now, excuses sound pathetic, even to you. That's when you know the shift is real. Not when you feel motivated, but when you feel intolerant of your own weakness. That's growth. That's the beginning of a new identity forming. And once that identity locks in, the idea of waiting for the perfect time will feel ridiculous.
So here it is. The moment you've been circling around this entire time. You keep thinking there's going to be some dramatic shift, some lightning strike of clarity, some perfect alignment where fear disappears and confidence takes over. It's not coming. There is no cinematic breakthrough. There's just a decision, a quiet, internal line you draw that says, this version of me is done. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when things calm down. Now. Right now, you're standing in the most powerful moment of your life, the present, and you keep disrespecting it. You treat it like a waiting room, like this moment is just a placeholder until something better arrives. But this is it. This is where strength is built. This is where discipline is chosen. This is where identity is forged. Not in some future version of you. In this imperfect, messy, inconvenient version of you. You want the brutal truth? You are either building momentum right now, or you are building regret. There is no neutral. Every action compounds. Every delay compounds. Every excuse compounds. 5 years from now, your life will be the accumulated result of what you repeatedly did after you finished watching things like this. That's it. Not your intentions, not your ideas, not your potential, your repeated actions. If you walk away from this and do nothing different, then you've chosen your future. That sounds harsh. Good. It should. Because ownership is heavy. But it's also freeing. When you finally accept that nobody is coming to save you, not your friends, not your boss, not motivation, not luck, something clicks. You stop waiting. You stop blaming. You stop hoping. And you start operating. You wake up and move before your feelings have time to argue.
You execute even when your mind tries to pull you back. You become the kind of person who keeps promises to himself, and that changes everything. Because once you trust yourself, fear loses its grip. Once you act consistently, doubt loses its volume. Once you push through discomfort enough times, it stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a signal that you're growing. The perfect time was never a date on a calendar. It was a mindset. And that mindset dies the moment you realize something powerful. You don't need better timing. You need stronger standards. You don't need more confidence. You need more courage. Confidence comes after courage, after action, after proof. And proof is built in the small, boring, repetitive choices you make when nobody's watching. This isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming accountable. It's about looking at your life and saying, if it's going to change, it's because I changed. Not because conditions improved, not because the world got easier, but because you got stronger. Right now, you have two paths. You can close this and go back to the same habits, same scroll, same delays, same comfort. Or you can let this be the line, the moment where you stop romanticizing the future and start earning it. Because here's the final realization. The perfect time is a delusion. It always was. There is only this breath, this hour, this decision. And the version of you that finally understands that is unstoppable.